1 Corinthians chapter 13, and we'll read the entire chapter. Seems to be pretty short. So, 1 Corinthians chapter 13. If I speak in tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains but have not love, I am nothing. If I give all my possessions to the poor and surrender my body to the flames but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always preserves. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when perfection comes, the imperfection disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put off childish ways behind me. Now we see but a poor reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Our exhortation today is by our brother Trent Johnson, and the title of his exhortation is Dreams of the Blind. Brother Trent.
Good morning, everyone. It's so good to be here, and I really mean that. I always mean that, but I especially mean it now. Let me get set up here for a second. Okay. So, as you maybe can tell from the title of this talk, I had been thinking about dreams lately. I don't know why, but I did. And I would like you to think about dreams this morning. Literal dreams and the more abstract thing we call dreams when we mean our aspirations and what we would like to accomplish, those kind of dreams. So I'd like to talk about both. First, I would like you to answer some questions. If a person came up to you and said, I've never dreamed, I don't understand what dreams are, how would you describe a dream to that person? It is not the case, because everybody dreams, at least according to what I've heard. Some people don't remember that they've dreamed, and so they insist that they don't dream, but everybody does dream. But if some person really was unable to dream, how would you describe dreams to that person? Do you have any thoughts as to how you do it, Sherry?
I've always thought it was like I either see or think about something in a flash, and it sometimes doesn't, I don't dwell on it, and then it sort of comes to the fore again when I'm sleeping. So it's like a thought or a sight that
Right. But you're kind of describing dreams to people that dream, right? A person that doesn't know what a dream is at all.
Oh, I see, okay.
But those are good ideas. I mean, I think that's true what you're saying, Sharon.
To me, dreams are kind of like what TV. It's like a story, and sometimes I can't figure out what it has to do with me. But if something really bad is going to happen, I always wake up before, you know.
Right. So, yeah, it's like watching TV, except you have no idea. Like, sometimes you never have any idea what the plot is or what, what the storyline is.
Turn it off.
Sometimes you wished you could turn it off and you can't for a while. Other ideas about them, Abigail?
If I had to describe a dream to somebody who didn't know what a dream was, I think I'd say it's the story that unravels when you're not consciously thinking about the story. So whether that's a daydream or a dream while you're sleeping, you're not creating that story out of your own accord. It just is something that happens with all the thoughts and things that are in your head, and it unravels without you having any say in where the story goes.
Right. So you are the one making the story, but you have no control over how the story develops. At least you don't feel like you do or anything. See?
Sometimes you're working or you're hard and you wake up tired.
Because your dream is so vivid and real that, so would you say that dreams seem like they're real while you're dreaming them? Yeah, they do pretty much. Mickey?
Dream is like pictures in mind. You see things, but your eyes are closed. So your mind is making these pictures in your head, and it seems very real.
Right, and we're going to get into that in a little bit, how you kind of see things in your dream. Russ?
I was going to say, not describing them so much, but they can be very disturbing where you can not get back to sleep. Or
Right,
they can
right.
be mild and you can brush them off as if they meant nothing.
Right. They can be intense, or they could, like you could wake up in a sweat, like Cease is saying, almost like you actually experienced the things that happened in it. Or sometimes they're just, I don't know what that was about, and you go right back to sleep. Sherry?
I was going to say too, sometimes um, your dream can solve a problem for you. Usually, like if I have like a creative idea and I'm trying to think about how I'm going to do this, I get the result or the answer to that in my dream. I don't know why, but I do.
Yeah. No, I think that's happened. In fact, I heard a talk once about inventions of the 20th century and earlier than that even, and a lot of those people were stuck on a certain part of their invention, and they dreamed about it and solved it. How does that make sense? I don't know. Melinda?
Mishmash of thoughts when the brain's trying to make sense of them and build a story about it. It's like
Right.
trying to pick it, because you have no control over it, and you don't even know why you thought of it, but it's just a random thoughts trying to create a story.
The most disturbing dream I ever had was when my brain, it seemed like just unloaded thoughts, and they were just so fast going through, and I woke up and said, what was that? I mean, I could not make sense out of any of it. It was like a computer dump or something in my head that just went through so fast, and nothing made any sense at all. And it was that was the kind that really bothered me, because it was like I had no idea what that was that I just experienced. And I think you've all had different kinds of dreams, like Russ was saying. You have dreams that are intense, some you don't even remember. Sometimes you dream about something, it seemed very real, it seemed like real events in your life. And have you ever had one come true that you dreamt? Like that you dreamt about something and the next day maybe some of the things happened that you dreamed about? Those are weird. So there's all kinds of dreams. And in the Bible it says sometimes God speaks to people in dreams and in visions. But I'm not going to talk about that too much, and I'm not going to try to figure out what dreams mean or why we dream what we do. But the other thing I was thinking about when I was pondering dreams is, do blind people dream? Because, you know, most of our descriptions here, it's a visual thing. It's like watching TV. We don't really know what the story's going to be, but it's usually related to thoughts in our mind. Sometimes, you know, we have no idea why, but it's often, I mean, it's visual. That's the whole point of it. So I was thinking, do blind people, people that were born blind or went blind very young, do they have visual dreams? And again, I don't know why I was thinking about that. I was just pondering that. What kind of dreams do the blind people have? So I looked it up. Blind people do not have visual dreams. They, you know, if they were born blind or have been blind since like 5 to 7 years old, they don't have visual dreams. They just dream, they do have dreams, but they just dream what they experience as unsighted people. So their dreams are based on their other senses. So again, they would smell things in their dream or feel things, you know. So their dreams are different from ours. I was looking at what Helen Keller said about her dreams before she was actually taught. She said, before her teacher first came to her, says Helen Keller stated that her dreams were devoid of any kind of sound because she was also deaf. She was deaf and blind at a very early age. So she said her dreams didn't have any sound or sight or thought. They only contained fear and strong abstract sensations. That's kind of, I don't know, that's sick almost. It's like, you can't even imagine that. I can't imagine that. She said that her dreams had changed during the past 12 years when she was taught how to understand. She was taught sign language that she could feel. But she used to have dreams. She said in her one dream, she would feel something fall heavily without any noise, causing the floor to shake. And she would wake up immediately, like, with great fear. So it was like, you know, she was dreaming that something hit the floor, but she didn't see anything hit the floor or hear anything. She would just feel it in her dream, and she would wake up suddenly. And she also had a dream, she said, for a while about a wolf that would just, of course, she couldn't visualize the wolf, but it would just come and sink its teeth into her out of the darkness. But as her, you know, her thoughts became more clear, as she learned more things and how to understand people and communicate, these dreams went away. She still wouldn't dream visually, but she could understand objects outside of herself, and that made her dreams different. So I thought that was interesting, that people without sight, of course, don't have visual dreams, but they do dream. It's just their dreams are far different from what ours are. And do you know what REM sleep is? I think most people do. It's REM, REM stands for rapid eye movement. that's what happens when you're in a dream state. You won't dream all night long, but when you do dream, your eyes move back and forth rapidly. And so people that are studying you and watching you know when you've gone into a dream sleep, because your eyes start to move back and forth. Do you suppose people that are blind have REM sleep? What would you think? Scientists say that if you don't get this REM sleep, you're in trouble. If you don't dream, if you always got awakened before you got into that dream state, you would have mental problems because I don't know why exactly, but they've tried doing that to people, waking them up before they could actually dream, and those people had problems. So, do blind people have rapid eye movement when they dream? No, they don't, which is an interesting thing as well, because why? The point I guess scientists were making is that when you start to dream, you think it's real, so you start to scan your dream with your eyes. You're not really seeing with your eyes, but that's just a natural state of your body that you start to move your eyes to look at the dream. Well, of course, people that can't see wouldn't move their eyes to see their dream, because that's not how they dream. They dream with their other senses. But they still are dreaming, it's just that their eyes aren't scanning the dream. But I think that shows how deeply realistic our dreams are, that we think we have to look around in our dreams. So that's the dreams of the blind that I was pondering. Now imagine if you, being a sighted person, had the dream of a blind person. If they were some way able to insert that dream into your head during the night. And as I described it, I mean, I described it as best I can, how blind people dream. What would you think if you had that kind of dream in a night? I think it would be very disturbing. I mean, to have a dream like that where you're just not even, I mean, we're so used to having visual type dreams that if you had a dream where the other senses dominated, or even to the point like Helen Keller was saying, that it was just purely emotional, where all you dreamed was fear, you know, I think that would be really disturbing. It would be very difficult to understand what was happening without visual cues, I think, for a sighted person. So my question to you is, why do we do that to ourselves then? Because I think we do. We dream the dreams of the blind. And I'm not talking about the literal dreams that blind people have that we just described. Now I'm talking more about the abstract, that we take on the dreams of the blind. And I'm talking about the spiritual blind of this world. Why do we dream those kind of dreams for ourselves? I think for people of faith who can actually see God or what God has in store for the earth, these dreams are wrong for us to have these dreams of the blind, and they should be disturbing. If we dream right along with the blind in this world, it's not going to go well with us. I think what happens to us is that those kind of things that Helen Keller and other blind people were talking about start to creep into our lives once we see our dreams as matching up to the world's dreams. Then we tend to be fearful and angry, and our lives become emotional. And I think the Bible backs this up. You know, again, I'm switching courses here. I'm not talking about literal dreams anymore. I'm talking about how dreams are represented in our lives as goals and aspirations that we should strive for, things that, you know, sometimes don't seem possible, but we can dream about them and hope that they happen. In John chapter 9, there's a story about a man that was born blind. And, you know, this is one of my favorite stories in the Bible, and I'm not going to get into it too deeply, except to say there's a whole irony in this whole episode of the man born blind, because he would have experienced, his literal dreams would be along the lines of what we were talking about. He wouldn't have had visual dreams because he never saw anything. And, you know, for people to be cured as an adult of blindness that they were born with, it's an impossibility pretty much, as we know today, because if your brain doesn't form this connection with your eyes within the first few years of life, then you'll never see. Even if there was a cure physically for your problem, you would never be able to see because your brain had not made that connection early on. So it never allowed for sight. The brain never did. But this man was cured. And he pretty much says during this whole episode, nobody's ever heard of this. It's never happened. He says, when the Pharisees come up to him, they don't believe that Jesus healed him because it is a remarkable thing. And so they question whether he was really blind to start with. And he says, of course I was, and they should have known because he was a beggar. Obviously, they never paid attention to him and weren't concerned with him because they didn't believe he was blind. So they obviously had never met him. But he was born blind. And the whole irony is that his eyes were opened, but he steps right into the dream or a nightmare of blind people, right? Because these Pharisees and Jews that are in control, they have a whole different set of values than what Jesus is presenting. So he steps out of blindness right into this nightmare pretty much, and he cannot understand it. He cannot figure it out. Finally, he says, in verse 28, it says, they reviled him, saying, you are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he comes from. The man answered, why, this is a marvel. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. He just can't, you know, it's like, what am I seeing here? I don't even understand. Now he's able to see clearly, and I think that spiritually as well. And they say, no, you don't see. You were never blind, they're trying to say. And he said, this is a marvel, he says. I cannot understand what's going on. I think it's almost like what I was asking you before. If you had the dreams of the blind inserted into your head, you would say, what is going on? I cannot figure this out. This man has his eyes opened, and they want to show him the dreams of the blind again. And I think his dreams were probably less disturbing than what they're trying to tell him here. So the spiritual rulers had no room for Jesus in their dreams. He wasn't part of their dreams and aspirations. Jesus finally says to them, when he reveals himself to the blind man, he says, "For judgment I came into this world, that those who do not see may see, and that those who see may become blind." Some of the Pharisees near him heard this, and they said to him, "Are we also blind?" Jesus said to them, "If you were blind, you would have no guilt. But now that you say we see, your guilt remains." All right, so these guys, I would say, you know, when the man born blind was exposed to this, my paraphrase would be, what kind of strange dream is this that he just walked into? Because it is very strange for one who now has faith. And again, my point is, do we understand the strangeness when we walk into a dream like that? When we get the dreams of the blind in our head, are we just as disturbed, or do we just accept them and take them as our own dreams? Again, well, let's look at Luke 9 to make another point. This is transfiguration. So in verse 28, it says, about 8 days after these things, he took with him Peter and John and James and went up on the mountain to pray. And as he was praying, the appearance of his countenance was altered, and his raiment became dazzling white. And behold, two men talked with him, Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory and spoke of his departure, which he was to accomplish at Jerusalem. Now Peter and those who were with him were heavy with sleep, and when they wakened, they saw his glory and the two men who stood with him. Now, so I would ask you, was this a dream that they saw? No, it wasn't really. I'm not sure what it was. But it says they were sleeping when it first started, and they awakened from their sleep. So whatever they were doing prior to seeing this great sight, you know, they were asleep. I mean, maybe they were having dreams, some other kind of dreams at that time. But when they awakened, then they saw this. And I don't know what the transfiguration is, but what I'm going to say to you this morning for the purposes of this talk is that's how faithful people dream. They dream when they're awake, that they see things after they wake up. It says apostles were heavy with sleep, and you know that's like sleep is death, essentially. And anytime we wake up, that's like the resurrection. So these people saw this great sight after they woke. So the dreams of the faithful, this is my theory, my opinion, happen when you're awake. And when you're trying to get close to God and understand Him. So when they awoke, they saw His glory. I'm not sure what the transfiguration is. It doesn't seem to be exactly real, but it seems to be a depiction of reality or what is going to happen in the future. You know, and then there's like two passages. One is, and I'm not going to look this up, but one is Matthew 17, verse 20, where Jesus said, if you had faith, you could move mountains. All right, if you had faith like a mustard seed, you could say to this mountain, move from here to here. Now, to me, that's like a dream. Those are the kind of things that happen in your dream, and I have not seen evidence of anyone yet in the Bible that has actually done that, that said this mountain can move from here to here, because there's no reason for it, I think, at this time. There may be a reason in the future. And you could say, well, he's talking about mountains of problems or whatever. No, I think that's not what he's talking about. He's literally talking about a mountain. And if you noticed in the reading that Otto did in 1 Corinthians 13, that's one of the things that's mentioned there. Even if you could move a mountain, he says, through your faith, that's not good enough. And I think, Jesus is saying to believers, yes, you could. You could dream, whatever you could dream, you could actually do if you truly had faith, even like a mustard seed. And I think maybe we will in the future. But I think that goes in with the dreams of the faithful as well. If you truly have faith and trust in God, He'll tell you the things that He would like you to do. Things that you maybe only dream are possible, you could actually do if God asks you to do it. Now, so the apostles saw some of these. They didn't see mountains get moved, at least not yet. I think that time will come still when mountains will actually be moved. And it won't be like the dreams of the blind where it's scary or you just have fear because of it. This will be because of your faith. But when we're sleeping, that's the whole irony of it, that we miss these great things. So if you turn up a few chapters in Luke 22, right before Jesus' death, He was in the Garden of Gethsemane. And it says he brought Peter, James, and John with him a little ways past the other apostles. But then it says he went a little ways away from them and separated himself even from them. And he said, stay awake. He told them to stay awake while he went and prayed. And 3 times he came back and they were asleep. So each time they could not stay awake. It's a lot like the Mountain of Transfiguration, except this time they stayed asleep while he was gone. On the Transfiguration, they woke up and saw these great things. So what did they miss while they were sleeping? What did they miss when Jesus had gone to pray? They did miss something. What was it? Anybody have an answer?
Didn't they know it was dangerous for him to be there in Jerusalem?
Yeah, I think they eventually, when they woke up, Jesus said, I told you to stay awake, but now the hour has come, and they said, look, here's my betrayer is already on his way. So they had to scramble to get their minds back into things. But they did miss something while they were sleeping. What was it, Mickey?
The angel that
Right.
strengthened Jesus.
Right. They missed that. I think if they had stayed, it says in verse 43, and there appeared to him an angel from heaven, strengthening him. And being in agony, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down upon the ground. I think they would have seen that angel if they had remained awake, and it would have made a difference in how they reacted in those last few hours of Jesus' life. But they slept and missed it. Whether they were enjoying the dreams of the blind, I'm not sure, but I think spiritually they were on a different track. They thought different things were going to happen. So they did not see Jesus become strengthened, and they missed it. I mean, they missed an opportunity for themselves to be strengthened as well. And you know, what I want you to do after this talk is just to think about all the situations in the Bible where people have spiritual dreams and how they seem different from the dreams of those who are destined to die. Even dreams that God gives some of the rulers of this world, those people are afraid from their dreams. And it's only spiritual people that can explain them and dispel their fears. And I was even thinking about the shepherds watching their sheep by night, right? And they saw angels because they were awake. I'm sure some people thought they were dreaming when they described what happened with them, but they knew they weren't dreaming. They actually, because they were awake, saw angels. And I think that's the lesson for us. People that have spiritual dreams are awake when they get them. They understand things. So what happens when we go home? Are our dreams going to be different now because I told you about these dreams of the blind? No, I think we'll just probably go back to our usual dreaming. Dreams of the blind is really just a metaphor for how we should act in our service to God. The dreams of the blind, which we sometimes seem to take on, dreams of whatever, you know, if you dream about being a famous athlete or a movie star or something, those things lead to nothing. Probably just fear and anxiety, as you can see from some of those people that actually live those lives. Dreams about riches, dreams about whatever, you know, that we dream of, fame. They don't lead anywhere. Those are the dreams of the blind, and they'll just fade away, and those people oftentimes die just in a worse state than they were born. But the dreams of the faithful are based on the promises of God. So I'm just going to close with a couple of passages and hope that you think about these things. Look at Psalm 126. And this is one we can certainly relate to, even, well, especially in these days as we see things happening in the world. It says, when the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dream. Then our mouth was filled with laughter and our tongues with shouts of joy. And they said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us. We are glad. Restore our fortunes, O Lord, like the watercourses in the Negeb. May those who sow in tears reap with shouts of joy. He that goes forth weeping, bearing the seed for sowing, shall come home with shouts of joy, bringing his sheaves with him. So there's a good dream. When the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, he says it as if it's already happened, and that's how we should think of it. It's a dream while we're awake, a dream of the restoration of Israel. And it is happening, and we continue to watch that as evidence of our God working in this world. And the last passage I'd like to read is from what Otto read in 1 Corinthians 13. Because I think our dreams are still a little hazy. We certainly can't see, like Jesus did, the joy set before us so that we can endure what he did. But we can kind of see. I mean, we should be able to see at least this much, especially when we come here on Sundays and take the bread and the wine. We can certainly see these things that endure through all time. What he says at the end is, so faith, hope, love abide, these three, but the greatest of these is love. And I think that's what we're trying to experience today. And what he says a little bit before that is what I would like you to think about, and especially in terms of dreams of the blind. He says, for now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall understand fully, even as I have been fully understood. So I think Paul's whole point here is that, I can't see totally clearly. I can kind of see a reflection. And so my dreams aren't exactly, probably like Jesus could see so clearly that his dreams of the kingdom and of salvation were as real to him as our dreams seem when we're in the middle of them. And he knew his would actually come to pass. But Paul is saying, I think, that if you concentrate on these things, you don't concentrate on material things. You do on these things that are enduring and long-lasting, faith, hope, and love. And he says especially love. So even though we still maybe have some dreams of the blind, I'm hoping to encourage you to take on the dreams of the faithful. And those dreams are faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of those is love.
Thank you, Trent. Let's continue now with the singing of a hymn. Hymn number 227 in the Green Book. Bread of the world, in mercy broken, wine of the soul, in mercy shed. Hymn number 227. Shed, and my As Trent was speaking to us about dreaming, a lot of visions of like what dreams really mean to a lot of people. When you're young, it's dreamy girls and dreamy guys, and there's the teacher who walks up to you and say, oh, you're just a daydreamer when you're going somewhere else rather than listening to the class. And the people who say the people of inventors are things, they're just dreamers, but sometimes those are the people that do achieve. And then I started thinking about the Pharisees and how often they'd heard or seen the miracles. And to them, it was just somebody coming to take my job. And I've heard people, they don't see progress, they don't see the good in things, they don't see the love in it, they don't see what's good. They have a one slanted view. They go through the motions, but they never understand what they're going to do. And there's a saying I always like, it goes something like, do what you're doing when you're doing it. That is, to give your full attention to what you're doing and do it to the best you can. And in the Bible, there's a lot of examples of that, of the workman that needeth not be ashamed. Well, as I thought about these Pharisees, they had their rules. They did things a certain way. And I heard a story on the news this morning, and I remember remarking to Melinda that how strange this was. It seems there was an elderly person in a healthcare facility, and the nurse that was caring for her calls up 911 and says, this person's not breathing. And so after she gives the description the nurse gives the description back,